Good morning, folks. Kind of an audio test here also. Good day, folks.
Good something. It's all very confused this week.
Hey, John. And off by an hour across the pond as well.
Something like that. And you never know which direction they're going to go either. It depends who created them and where they were on holiday at the time.
When does the UK switch its time zone? Daylight savings time?
Two more weeks, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
It's always the last Sunday of March.
Okay, that's a good way to remember it.
Yeah, it's the time when you guys used to do it.
Maybe we should bring this to a standards body to see if we could align on times.
Yeah, well, I would just align on not changing them at all. So that would be easy. Cool. Could I ask a favour, just in the first couple of minutes while people are coming along? Hannes probably will be along later, but certainly not for the beginning of the call. So I'm leading and taking notes today. Can someone just check the hedge doc and see if you can see a heading meeting minutes for 2023-0313? Because I have a feeling it's put me in some kind of private note.
I see meeting minutes for 313.
Okay,
I don't
cool.
see any
nothing else.
Minutes. Yeah.
That's okay. I'll
yeah.
Do that.
Now I see.
See those. Okay, cool. Right. Good. Then I will take the notes here.
John, the U.S. Congress decided we needed to do something different with our daylight savings time, so that's why we changed.
I'm sure everybody has their reasons. It's a very divisive thing here. Yeah, I mean, heaven only knows with the size of your country, but our country is just about long enough that the people in the far south have a very different opinion on the people in the far north. Anyway, it feels like most of us are here, so.
Our north-south divide is pretty well known.
So I believe it's 3 after, so I guess we can start to get going. I believe the only thing that we're looking at is the continuing large updates to the architecture document. So I will in a second pass over to Henk and Steve for that. Does anyone else have any other agenda hacking to do quickly before we get going? That sounds like a no. So also in keeping with last week, because we are really under the clock now, or the calendar for getting this stuff done and ready to submit and approve, what I would like to do with the queue is allow the editors to go through a section at a time. We'll collect up all of the queue comments and then try and address them kind of as a block, just so that we don't sort of run out of time on the things we're covering. So if that doesn't work for us, then I'll change it back, but I'll try and do it that way for this week. So I don't know, Henk or Steve, who wants to start, but I reckon we should just go through each of the issues and outstanding PRs and see if there's anything controversial.
Yeah, I guess I'll kick off just because Hank did the majority of the work with the vast overhaul terminology. So we did get that merged. We did get, I captured as much as I possibly could, which some would argue is too much, but I try to capture as much as I could of the open issues. So there's a bunch of issues capturing. And then I think it was Friday, I tried to triage what I thought we needed to land for today versus what we would do later. So I did a bit of a triaging process in the issues, and either was set to 116, which the deadline, one of the deadlines is today, or it was set to 117, and 117 was more of a bucket that it was triaged. So if nothing's assigned to a release, a milestone, then it hasn't been reviewed yet, was the thought process. With that, and one more thought that I'll hand back to Hank is the doc did get merged. We got a lot of the updates in there because they were all piecemeal. There is a little bit of inconsistencies that we were trying to clean up over the weekend. and we didn't actually note down some of the decisions we made in the open issues. So that added a little more confusion, at least to me, because I was trying to, excuse me, make the terms consistent, and I didn't realize we switched one way or the other. So with that, I'll leave to Hank because I know he's been looking at it as well.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Hi, this is Hank. Yeah, okay, architecture internet draft for SCITT. There was a task to consolidate the terms claims and statement and assertion and how to deal with that. There was a outside force, an outside pool of inputs. There were people really drenched into the depths of how this should look like the hardcore formal people. The current PR that was merged actually, I think, represents consensus of both sides. So there was a lot of contentious discussion. I think I want to highlight, because I'm not sure if every stakeholder is here, that there's a strong notion on separating the formal term of signing something from the formal term of using COSI to signing something. Because when you sign something with COSI, you separate every metadata into two buckets. One of them is the bucket that goes into the signature, and one of the bucket is that does not go into the signature. And there was, I think formally and for everybody globally, the most contentious thing. For some people from the IETF coming from COSI and COSI, this is all of this like obvious, right? But from the outside looking at the IETF, that was not obvious. So I think we remediated that by retaining most of the basic terminology that was the actual initial proposal, to be honest, and then changing some arrows that add some COSI and some signing procedure and some specializations there. So I think when you look at changes from the changes at the figure 1 in the architecture, I think you will see that the most uncontentious items are in the boxes, and the actual new parts that were the solution to this are at the arrows. So that's my summary for the architecture on the vast overhaul. Remaining terminology issues are there, of course. There's a vastly inconsistent use of log and ledger and other forms of phrasing the repository, the retention system. And I want to highlight and spoil here first that I think that somehow lost in translation between the two meetings, last two meetings, was that we are basically going the most agnostic term, that's the append-only ledger. So if you have a, I don't know, SQLite file in your TEE, and you can guarantee that that is handled as an append-only mechanism, you're good. The thing is append-only. And you're never removing something, you're only adding something. You want to remove something, you're amending it with another statement. I think that's the current understanding here. That is a terminology issue not resolved in the current PR. That is still a little bit all over the place in the current text. And please stay tuned that we fix that. So if you have a problem with the append-only structure, in this case log term, please say so on here on the list and argue why this is bad. But I think that's a common denominator everybody agrees on. But this is open items. So I know I was referring to things solved and things open. I think that's the gist of it. Yeah.
Cool. So thanks, Hank. And right on time, Yogesh, you have a hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I think thanks to Hank, he consolidated or summarized very well. So regarding, I just wanted to clarify, Hank, you saying append only log, right? Because way back in October, before the IETF 1.5, we agreed that we will remove ledger, and because it's more takes it towards blockchain and very implementation specific term, would use append only logs. So if that is what you meant, I'm happy with it. And if anybody has any
Yes.
objections, I would love to hear that as well. If there is any objections to this. Yeah.
So before the objections can be raised, I want to highlight, yes, registry has the drawback of IETF connotation, because of we don't want to really delve into AEANA territory here and reuse the term registry. Yeah? And ledger, yes, that somehow also is a term burned. I know that sometimes ontologies are sold via using the term JSON-LD, obfuscating the term ontology while you're still using them. So we are not trying to do that here. I think obfuscating terms with new terms is bad. Nevertheless, ledger is really connotated, not even annotated, but connotated with further meaning that we want to avoid here. And I understand that the term ledger to some facets of this domain are viable and useful. I think they're not useful here. So avoiding it for now and then elaborating on in future text is better. And that's, yeah, registry is probably out, ledger is probably out, which basically leaves log. And I think everybody can agree on that. That's my point of view. But we are not doing any changes right now on this. If you still have your opinion, please speak out.
So so regarding the terminology, ledger or log, I think either is fine. Opinions either way. My opinion is let's pick one and move forward. So append only log makes sense. The question I have though is SCITT transparency service or registry. If we're talking about an instance of this thing, is it a transparency service?
That's point item 3. You have, of course, the service that provides APIs. That's very intuitive. An API, and that, I think that's raise comments has a customer-facing side and an internal-facing side, and I think people who read from it or put some things to it, may be different. And I think Ray made a very good point about that. So that's future work. I have to flesh that out. Transparency services also include vital parts. One of them is a log. And I think one of them is the concept. I'm not saying it's a function. What I want to say today, it's a concept that really, really resonates with everybody, I think, who tries to understand what we're doing as notarization of the notary. That doesn't understand the content, that just notarizes all the parties in the room and that it was said and that, assertion. And so, so I think that has to go in there and has to be a part of transparency service. So my current way of thought from my individual point of view is log, yes, because that's where you cryptographically do things, and then functionize-wise notarization, which parties are involved, what is going through that cryptographic function. These are two parts of the transparency service, but I'm a little bit going into the guessing realm here, but I think that looks pretty feasible to me. Yeah.
So I hear you, and I agree with the concepts, because remember, there's an instance of this thing. If somebody refers to somebody running one, what do we want to call it? And so I struggle with the term transparency service, because we've got ourselves caught up in some things are opaque, some things are transparent. I'd be perfectly fine to call it a transparency service for now, just so that doc is consistent. If we can have the document be consistent from begin to end, then at least we know that we can do a search and replace for a single term, should we choose to do that. But right now we're using so many synonyms that it does get confusing. So I think the ones I know we've solved is statement, signed statement, transparent statement. That's good.
Yes.
The other one is log over ledger, which is the thing that we're writing to, which is a subcomponent of the overall system. Obviously, this thing needs to have some durability. So I'm hearing it's a an append only log when we refer
Yes.
to it in the doc.
Proposal
then-
for now, no decisions, but this candidate, most favorite candidate from my point of view, yes. Okay.
Well, and a favorite candidate, just to the point of, can we update the doc with that? Because what I'd like to suggest
Not
is
today. Not today.
You don't-
No.
No.
I think we can
I
put
think-
it out. No, the chess kick in here. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, let's. I think that having a name for that is very important. What the name
Yeah.
is. We could just spend another month going through. I think it's worth just pointing out. This is a useful opportunity that a lot of our conversations get into discussions like that. Like, can we call it a transparency service when not absolutely everything is absolutely fully transparent? There are always abstractions and shades of grey in what we're doing. Are the identities strong enough? Well, it depends how hard you look and how hard people are trying to hack you, but we have to draw the line somewhere. So I think that the consistency is super duper important. Exquisite linguistic correctness, I think, is going to fail us because the English language isn't very good at the kinds of abstractions that SCITT is dealing with. So yeah, let's get it in with TS as it is now. We lost. Did we lose somebody from the queue? Charlie, you were next for sure. But anyway,
Yeah, I'll pass in a second. Just so I understand, do we want to leave the doc as it is today, Hank? Is that what you're suggesting? We submit as it is today, right? Not just today, as it is now.
Oh, there are a lot of things. Sorry, Charlie. You're really patient here. I get that. I'm sorry. Yeah, a lot of things are pushed back for today. We have other churn. For example, there's a receipt ID in SCITT, and we realized that the SCITT receipt ID basically represents a global concept of how to phrase Merkle tree proofs and maybe their audit paths in COSI. So that's a thing we will issue today. And we decided not to, the editors and authors of the architecture decided not to, in last minute, change the reference from receipt to this global COSI Merkle tree thing that is not even accepted by COSI yet, right? So we are parallel, splitting things out. The things spawning from the concept of SCITT to a specific format and security related other working groups like COSI, we split them out in parallel. So in this IETF-116, you will encounter both a up-to-date receipt ID for providing metadata with countersigning proofs that something has to be added to a ledger, next to a COSI ID that explains how to, in general, phrase if you use some kind, and there's a registry there, of hash tree in COSI, how to use that. So we are splitting more generic items of SCITT into other working groups where it's a process. And therefore, at the moment, and especially in 116, you will encounter both the remaining specific document in SCITT and also co-encounter the more generic item in COSI. I want to really highlight that there's no discrepancy here, but we have to wait for a response from COSI, and we of course won't abandon our own thing, but there will be consolidation between 116 and 117 in July, and then we will find out where goes what. And that's an interesting discussion, but that's a little bit off topic, maybe too specific right now. But yeah, there's a lot of churn. We are not turning into the architecture today. We were discussing, should the architecture document already refer now to the very today released, to be released COSI Merkle tree specification instead of receipt? And I think the overall resonance was no. Don't confuse people with that. Split it off. make it a discussion, do it in parallel, see what's better, and then resolve this in the next step. So that's a long story for saying no. For saying yes, actually, there's a lot of things going on, but no, there's nothing else changing to the architecture document, although there are some generic things happening at COSI working group. Look at that. And that's my message, basically. Thank you.
Okay,
Cool,
so
thanks,
I
Hank.
would try to find a stable point for what we want to do with the architecture doc, so we could.
Hey guys, I'd really like
Okay,
to make a few
is.
remarks here if you
As
don't
is.
mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we get Charlie
21
in,
minutes
please?
in.
Yeah.
So I wanted to a couple of things. First of all, I think if we're discussing a document and some of those changes, I think they're all excellent, but I unfortunately have not been able to get deep into the document, and it would be helpful to have it on the screen or with some, a link or something to the changes or whatever it is, just to help follow. So that's part one. But I just also want to get clarity on where we are at this point in terms of terminology. And if I could maybe restate what I think I heard, we've settled on statement versus attestation versus whatever the other synonym was. And then we've also settled on notarization instead of transparency. If I heard that correctly. And I think there was one more, but I can't remember what it was. Is that, and then for signatures, we have decided we will not be dependent on COSI, but we will put a Magic Happens Here box in the architecture for the signature process. Is that a correct summary?
I'm just chiming in here. So
Thanks, Hank. I appreciate that screen share
thank
thing.
you. I'm not sharing anything at the moment.
Not yet, but yeah. Looks like you attempted to at least, which is the thought that counts sometimes.
I'm physically incapable of sharing anything.
Yeah.
So the second item, I think, depending on things COSI, we are in SCITT, we are taking COSI in and molding it to what we think we can use it for, and that's a receipt. And in COSI, in parallel, we are telling them, well, you're doing this, but shouldn't we do this in general, like in a global thing? And we are parallelizing that. So there's no decision there yet. There's actually two tracks that we want to see which is going to work. So if the global thing is a super contentious item that will never resolve, SCITT will not benefit. So SCITT will basically then go with, okay, you're retrofitting this hard. We're doing our own thing, right? And so then we'll feed that to COSI. That's basically it. Yeah.
Okay, so let me then make one quick follow on because I do have the floor. So I guess my question would be, why do we need to specify a signature method? Isn't any valid signature method going to work?
No, that is actually the real point of SCITT. If you have someone joining your supply chain, they're coming from arbitrary anywhere. You had a reliable partner for years, and they are now coming in and they're signing something with Scrafu, and you have never heard of that before. You don't know what Scrafu is. You have literally Googled that, and you find a description in a language you don't know. And now you are like, okay, how do I check authenticity? That's a real problem. So the authenticity check about the same thing, doing over the world, all over again. It's a thin frosting. It's concise. It's security vetted. There are libraries available for all things. That's the thing. The content, whatever it is, okay, be my guest. But I think, no, the signature, you can't diverge too much. That's the problem. We're trying to accommodate other signature schemes as a payload and referring to them and like, okay, this is initially signed. Unfortunately, there will be a next signature. We are really apologizing. Please go this. It's very specific guidance how to do this. Possible. But I think on a global scale, you can't diverge on how to check authenticity all the time, because then again, you're inviting all the problems. So that is why that's why basically the core reason why our current candidate for the global authenticity checking is COSI.
Yep.
And for scoped authenticity checking, you can do anything what you want in the payload. Does that make sense?
Okay, that does make sense. I guess I wouldn't say that Joe's authentication method is worth having, but any internationally recognized standard or well accepted practice would accelerate the adoption of SCITT in the absence of our own signature process. So just my 2 cents. I'm gonna yield the floor. Thanks, Hank.
Thanks, and thanks for your patience. Ray?
Okay, hi, thanks. I just wanted to recommend that we maybe have some discussion in any paper about the terminology, but not a lot from, go through and do global replace or anything like that. I happen to like Ledger better for the core, part of SCITT, but also I think registry is a better word for the whole thing, because there's going to be, I think, stuff that's not actually in that ledger that it's referring to and so forth. And that it seems like saying something like SCITT registry would be good for the whole thing. But again, these are my opinions right now. And I think we can maybe, I'm just thinking it'd be better maybe to try to put this terminology details aside. And I love the discussion that we were just having about how COSI fits in with how the ledger works. And that's where, like, if I was, here's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to take a ledger off the shelf, AWS QLDB. And then the question is, how would I work with that with COSI? That's something I'm trying to study on right now. And if we could have a discussion along those lines, that would be, I think, really productive. But I don't want to get in the way of any direction that the editors want to go in terms of getting getting things completed for this timeline. Thanks.
Ray, I'm just barging in here because you said a trigger word. Sorry for being intrusive. We have this global COSI how to represent Merkle trees in a draft, and now we just decided to move QLDB not into the first 00 because it's a branded thing, and to reference something that's an algorithm that's a branded thing will be a big uproar and into the gateway functions of the IETF that are vetting algorithms. So we're going with the least contentious thing in, which is the certificate transparency thing, right? That's our first registry item. But there are other, I want to say, named algorithms that are not easily referenced today. For vetting of the Crypto Forum Research Group, which is the, I want to say, semi-official gateway function for algorithms that are okay for the IETF, and we have to do that exercise to go through the CFRG here to get something like QLDB vetted. But yes, exactly that is why we are splitting off the Merkle tree proofs to the COSI group, saying, hey, this is the place to register something. There's just one cool candidate, because that's already RFC, and all these other candidates, one of them being QLDB. And unfortunately, we have to pass them through Crypto Forum Research Group. Unfortunately means, sorry for taking this time, but we have to be thorough here, and we have to do things right. So the apology is for the time this will cost. But we are not apologizing for thoroughness and feasibility. So because that is the goal, right? So Ray, yes, QLDB is actually on the radar blip somewhere, but we can't just put that into an ID right now. We have to really appreciate and accept the process here and put like, okay, we want this to be an accepted algorithm in the registry for how to deal with trees. So we have to go to Crypto Forum and let them vet it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, certainly. I didn't mean to imply that I was pushing QLDB. I just mentioned that one. They've been mentioned in some of the other diagrams. The list, of available off-the-shelf solutions for a ledger, and I'm used to using off-the-shelf things if they're available. So I think it's going to be wise for us to look at what's available and not just come up with something that is absolutely new and doesn't fit into what people are likely going to do.
Yeah, I think we've got two different horizons here, right? Because the important thing for me, and Hannes is now here, so welcome, Hannes. I think the really important thing for us is that the deadline for submission, if we want it to be sort of officially considered at 1/16, is today. So the big question for this meeting is there anything fatal in the current spec, the current merges that we really think we don't want to submit? And then we get to keep working. It does occur to me that if we're going super abstract with changing ledger to log, that's kind of the opposite decision. So we need to look at, in the next phase of work, we need to look at how far we take that, because obviously an append-only log doesn't have to have Merkle trees in it at all. So there's a bit of inconsistency in my mind at what stage of maturity the document's at in those two different ways. But yeah, let's just make sure that we're happy with the today submission, and if it's okay.
Exactly. We are not
then
submitting today anything that will be relating to changes to registry log or ledger. So this is the open PR that Steve was so very kind to create, and we are not submitting any decisions on that today, because that is, as you said, not entirely resolved.
Good.
So therefore, it's a PR.
Yeah, and just in case anybody hadn't noticed, it's my screen that's being shared. I've just got the GitHub open in case it's useful to open any of these issues or the main doc. So if anybody wants a visual aid, just let me know. Otherwise, I give the floor to Dick.
Thank you, John. Dick Brooks, REA. So I don't know of any showstoppers we have today. Personally, I'd choose log over ledger, but I definitely think registry is the proper term that we should refer to when we're talking about the formal, manifestation of these actual statements, signed statements, transparent statements, whatever is going to be in there. One thing I do know from the past, when I worked on ISO 15000, which is the EBXML standard, we faced a similar challenge with regard to the different types of payloads we'd have to address. And the bottom line where we landed was, look, just make sure that you have a MIME type associated with the payload, and any recognized MIME type could be processed. So if it was a PGP signature or signed piece of artifact, it would have a PGP signature MIME type. So I think we could address this by saying, with SCITT, we recognize MIME content types as the means by which we communicate information about formats and signatures and payloads. Thanks.
So I can definitely add to that media types and their registry are absolutely in the scope of RFCs and therefore internet drafts. We have to carefully phrase them, I think. It's a complementary thing to the content, of course, but it's very useful to APIs and their proceedings and procedures. So yes, while it's not a high priority right now, in the end, I absolutely agree with Dick whatever we do here can only benefit from corresponding media types.
Yeah, and I was just raising that, Hank, because of your concern or someone's concerns that COSI was mentioned here. In reality, there's no reason why we couldn't support COSI or PGP or SMIME or any other, proper packaging, format as part of this deal, because the payload is opaque. So it's just a matter of giving the receiver the information they need to process that payload. Thanks.
Exactly. So if it's about the payload, you can do whatever you want as an additional signature for your scheme in the ecosystem, like in nuggets, NPM, whatever. I think that's all correct. But on the authenticity level of SCITT, you can't diverge. That's the rule, I think. That is the real interoperability rule here. If we diverge there, you require everything, even the smallest IoT device, to have a second stack. That doesn't work. And so I think you're absolutely correct, Dick. On the payload level, we can even have further documents later on where we say, well, this payload that we say here in the Arctis is opaque, basically composes these three very prominent things, and we can elaborate on that. That's not a problem. That's becoming that we can even make them a non-opaque statement. I don't want to say transparent statement because that's kind of violating terminology with transparency service. I'm avoiding that by saying non-opaque at the moment. But yeah, I think there are a lot of non-opaque statements we want to define here in SCITT, and one of them could be for the internal signature schemes that we want to support. And I'm absolutely with you, yeah, Dick. Sorry, and that's all my time.
Yeah, and Hank, I would hope that every transparency service would be allowed to choose the technologies that they were going to use for their own implementation, and they would preserve the standards by following the interface specifications that ultimately SCITT will describe. So the rest,
yeah, but that will be a nesting. It will be a nesting. You will nest one, I want to say, domain-specific signature in the SCITT signature. The SCITT signature will not change globally as a unifying factor. But if you want to nest a domain-specific signature, you do not have to scrape that. You do not have to remove that. You can put that into the payload. Absolutely. And you can even have transparent statements of telling you how to process that. I think, sorry, non-opaque statements that can tell you how to process that. I think that's very, very okay. But on the SCITT level, I think if you try to merge now multiple signing schemes, then you are reproducing the same problem that you're trying to solve.
So you're just saying that we must reach a consensus on the SCITT level on the specific signature technology that will be used.
Yes, unfortunately, I think so. Yes, that is a global problem. That is an interoperability problem on fast, immediate resolution of authenticity. Yes, but again, as soon as you issued your own statement on the SCITT level, the statement itself could contain whatever you need as further authenticity. It is not mutually exclusive. But I think on a global level, for easy, fast, and consistent authenticity ad hoc, you cannot go into a tree of options. That is the problem. Yeah.
Well, this sounds like something we're not going to bottom out now. So let's it's a great thing to raise, but we need to spend more time on this. Neil?
Yeah, I don't think that's happening here. But thank you for explaining it.
Yeah. Neil,
so I wanted to agree with Hank on simplifying the client implementation and kind of using standards to make people's lives easier. And I actually wonder if I'm not quite sure what you're saying about the append-only definition. It would seem, in my mind, at least beneficial that there was a single way to architect that, or a set of approved ways to architect that, at least from the standpoint of making the auditor's tasks easier. You know, these claims are that a transparency service is in fact transparent and append only and so on is only as good as the auditing that's done on that. I guess it could just be the case that if somebody comes up with a bizarre scheme that they claim is append only and they can't find an auditor for it, that people will move somewhere else. But to what extent do we think the goal should be to have only a certain set of approved data structures and approaches to the append only and transparency aspects?
I think that's an excellent question. I think we have to go through some vetting here. We can't just say this is the way. I would love to say this is the way, but I think that that's not possible. So one step towards what you are highlighting here is to go through the process of first of all accumulating all ways, put them into a registry. Again, the IANA registry, and then the SCITT agree on, well, this looks like the best way forward, actually. Let's do this as the default. And you can also have other ledgers doing other things, but please be always aware of repercussions here, like that transitional problems and the mapping problems and how to relate the trustworthiness relationships, you know. So I think yes, one way forward would be the best way resolution. We can't do it at this point. Just prescribing that will fail in the IETF. That will fail security vetting, and therefore, unfortunately, we have to follow the process on that regard. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it also it should be obvious, I guess, but just occurs to me that this is an issue for the verifier of receipts also, and you know, so I appreciate the complications of how to do all that, but I don't want to take time away from what we're trying to get done today, which makes sense, but I do think we should try to be clear on how far we're going to try to push that simplification, because I think it's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all. I appreciate it. And let's talk on this and issues.
Hi. So, yeah, just one comment that I don't think I have looked at the document, and I don't think there is anything blocking as such today for submission. Architecture document can be submitted. Regarding the append only discussion, I suppose that yes, if we make it append only, that's the inherent characteristics we are baking into the architecture, which is fine. But tying it too much to the Merkle tree kind of concept gridlocks the architecture to a specific type of implementation, I suppose. Because tomorrow, if any append only other type of data structure can be envisaged or can be thought about, then we should not restrict. We should not say, okay, we can't support that because that append only nature is not Merkle tree. So that's why append only is the characteristic we want to support. How you implement it down the line through what type of Merkle tree, it would be best for implementers to make a decision call on that. That's my take on that.
Yeah, it's definitely there's an issue of consistency there that we need to address for sure. Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, just to Yogesh's point, the doc does refer to append only in several places, and there was a more detailed section that referred to you must not delete or it must not delete. So I think the append only and a couple of clarifications of a definition of the behavior of the implementation is probably much more critical than whether it says log or ledger or foo. Rather, we define the behavior, but just as a thought.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big round big round of things. Yeah, we still have time. Ray, go ahead.
Yeah, I like that idea of defining the behavior and allowing. I think what Hank was, well, others were saying is it would be good to allow other, various technologies there to, as we move forward, we're not going to be able to predict everything and how this will turn out, but just saying what it is. Now, so there isn't any serious open issues then. Is that the story at this point, Steve? I just wanted to check on, since we don't have a lot of time left, if there was anything specific we should discuss for today.
There was a number of clarifications I had hoped to get done by tagged as 116. John, if you wanted to click on the milestones in the top right, you can, or just click anything that says 116. Yeah, just click on milestones, and then you can click on 116. But I think at this point there's enough. Look, the doc is in pretty good shape. There's an opportunity for it to be more clarified. We continue to make great progress. In my opinion, I think the world would not end if we continued with what we have today. If there was an opportunity, actually, Hannes or John, what is the next steps between now and 116? I thought there was a refresh possible. Or should we not shoot for that?
What do you mean, Steve? Hi all. This is Hannes. I'm sorry for being late today. So between now and the actual IETF meeting, what is going to happen? In what sense?
So we're submitting today.
Yeah.
Whatever the current state of it is. That's great. It's in good enough shape, I think, to go to 116. I seem to remember at 115 that we were able to make an update, or was that the presentation that we made an update to between effectively today and the actual session?
Yeah, that was the presentation.
Okay.
There's a kind of a blackout period, but I think, someone may correct me, but I think it's Sunday of the IETF meeting, sort of the gates open again and we can submit something, but nobody is going to read it at that time anyway. So I think that's then the time between later today and the IETF meeting is the time when we are supposed to read the documents, not just these documents, but also other documents of other groups, related documents. So I think that's the idea.
What Hannes is trying to say, in theory, everything we do from Tuesday on is reading and not writing. And now the process allows you to push something in 2 weeks Mondays, which is the first day of the meeting, or it'll be Saturday. I'm not entirely sure when the day is. But the expectation is that you don't have to read something on Monday on the meeting because you already read it in the 2 weeks now. So there's a possibility formally to still update a draft in the meeting week, but it is somehow like if you do a big overhaul and not only editorials, it's also perceived as, well, you just squeezed that in. I couldn't prepare for that one, right? And so it's a little bit discouraged. It's not impossible. If it's a vital thing that it provides clarity and resolves like all the question marks that would have been a presentation into exclamation marks that say, aha, okay, then it's fine. But if you're just adding more options to the confusion, nah, maybe not. That's basically the demarcation line.
So is there anything in that list that John's sharing right now that we feel we have to solve by today? I think we're good, but I wanted to give the floor a chance since we have a couple minutes left.
So hearing none, with my process hat on, I want to not. It's either a no-go or we don't tackle this issue that we've been discussing for the last few minutes, because there's just so much nuance to it. And in particular, we clearly have to have more than one signature scheme, because otherwise we don't have crypto agility, and we know that's a bad idea. But whether it's MIME type references or cozy references or tree algorithm types in the cozy envelope, I think we don't have the time or the collection to actually make that choice. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that, John. I think that I mean, I guess my question is, do we have, obviously there's another opportunity to revise this thing, but just not before the meeting. Right?
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not a big deal. I don't think we should probably go with what we have. But I want to back to what you said about the crypto. That was sort of my point earlier. I think we have to allow more than one architecture, and so I would recommend we define later the meaning that we want, the behavior that we want, and not specify a particular algorithm or method. So
Wonderful.
like
Let's make that a dedicated request to the agenda that will be formalized on the email list as a request to the agenda for the SCITT meeting. What Charlie just said. Let's make that agenda item. Yeah.
Yeah,
awesome.
for Yokohama, right? Not for next
For
Monday.
Yokohama, exactly.
Perfect.
I
Great.
know it's Japan, and some especially European folks might be abhorred by the Japan time scale, but okay. Let's make that agenda item. I think what Charlie just said is really putting it to the thumb on the pain point, one of the most severe pain points. And I think we have to have discussion time in Yokohama for that. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks, Hank.
Good. Okay. Thanks, everybody. So I think that was constructive. I think we're all informed. So
Do we want to have a vote? Do we vote on these? Or?
I don't think we need to actually vote technically, but Hannes, do you want to just talk us through what does need to happen, what will happen by 2359?
No, we don't need to vote anything, but I think, as Steve mentioned, like a lot of the feedback that we had over the last I don't know how many weeks or months has been incorporated into the architecture document. Obviously, we had the use case document and the email discussion following afterwards for the call for adoption, which was successful. So that document will be submitted as well as a working group item. So we have 2 working group items later today. And yeah, and of course that like this is just this submission, but discussions will continue. And I think we also have a meeting still next week. I need to double check just to make sure that actually we have scheduled one. Give me a second. I believe that's correct. And so, yeah, I think it would be great if people could, in fact, if they haven't had a chance to do this yet, to actually read through the documents, to do updated documents, and then also some of the other documents which are not yet working group items, just to see whether they make sense or whether there are any comments, and so we could discuss them at the next Monday meeting, actually. And we have it on the calendar. So for next Monday, we still have a meeting. This is the 20th of March. And then afterwards, there's the IETF meeting. So, and then we need to schedule new meetings. And I suspect, well, at least I hope that you guys found this weekly Monday meetings useful, and that we should continue those. But of course, that's something up for discussion as well. Hank, or Yogesh is first, I think.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask, is this the right meeting forum to discuss the presentation aspects of the IETF session? Are we allocating 2-hour session for presentations like we did for last IETF sessions, and what needs to be presented and how?
Presenters orchestrate their presentations in their group of editors and authors. This is an open meeting. I think it's not the right place.
Okay.
Yeah, and ideally you want to focus on, well, like obviously the open issues, and like just looking at the issue tracker like there are plenty of open issues. Like pick the ones where you actually think we could make some progress on.
Sure.
Yeah, having said that, that doesn't mean that we can't ask chairs about their opinion. Yeah, correct. Jesus, I now forgot what I want to say for the actual item I want to raising my hand for. I'm sorry. So I'm lowering my hand. It was something important, I think, but I forgot it.
Well, I guess you'll have to bring it to the mailing list then, because we're almost out of time and we've run out of queue.
Yeah.
So you can give
I don't
everybody a
remember.
laugh when you remember what it is. So it seems like we're all set. So Hannes, you'll deal with the actual submission. Then I'm sure many of these comments will come back from the other people who read the document, and we'll have a fun time in a couple of weeks prioritizing the next issues. I think, and thank you very much to the guys who've done so much work over the last couple of weeks. Oh, Dick's coming in.
Hey guys, yeah, I just wanted to mention earlier today on the mailing list, I sent out a suggestion that we might want to add a link to the U.S. National Cybersecurity Strategy in the use case document. I know some, I think some others suggested that may not be such a great idea. We may have to do all of them, but I'd at least like to, make that suggestion and see if there's any support for it here to see if we can add that before the next meeting.
It'd have to be use case neutral for adoption. So I would recommend not doing it as well, but I'm not married to that.
Yeah, I'm like, for me, it would be fine. Like it's an example. If it adds some value, do it. Like it depends on like how valuable you think it is for motivating the use cases.
So Hannes, one of the items in there that I think is really going to be directly in line with the work SCITT does is this concept of rebalancing cybersecurity risk, where software suppliers and consumers will take action to do a better job at mitigating risks amongst themselves to try and share the responsibility for those for protecting entities from cyber risk. So I definitely see it as being aligned with the items we have in the use case document. Thanks.
Ole?
Just
Okay.
because that is not a perfect match for SCITT, and we don't want to kind of flavor the SCITT was not written to address that issue, and the SCITT attestations are going to be much more stringent than the requirements in that document. I would say it is orthogonal somewhat to SCITT, but maybe as a use case for down the road.
Thank you, Charlie. I see it a little differently. When I look at what our name is, it's supply chain integrity, transparency, and trust. And the concept in the national cybersecurity is all about transparency into the trustworthiness of software supply chain artifacts. So I see it differently. I definitely see the synergies there between what a SCITT registry can provide in terms of that transparency into trustworthiness. So I guess I see it a little differently.
I disagree with that at all, Dick. I think it's a great use case, but I don't think we want to, as soon as you start saying, okay, this is the U.S. solution, the EU is going to go, well, we have a different solution, right? I think that it would narrow it and flavor it too much right now. Maybe later on we can have an extended use case where we can address that the cybersecurity strategy. But for right now, I think it's premature. Just my 2
Okay.
cents, and anybody else is welcome to jump in.
Thank you.
We
I
can
think
probably
there is
think
an
about-
opportunity for credibility here, linking to something that is really going to happen. So that there's some benefit to that if we can tie our wagon to something that is definitely on the radar to be implemented. That would give us a lot of credibility. That's just my opinion, my 2 cents. Thanks.
Yes, I see your logic. We should definitely think about it. And also, like, if there are other sort of upcoming regulations or other projects that sort of fit into that scope, if it helps the reader to get the bigger picture, it's obviously useful. But let's think about it. I haven't read through it, so.
Thank you, Hannes. And thanks everyone for sharing your insights. Thank you.
Ole, you were in the queue, but I couldn't hear you. Did you drop out, or what was the issue?
I think you can hear me now, right?
Yes, works now.
Okay. I just wanted to say that, well, adding only the US specific strategy is no good. There are similar legislations all over the world. Maybe we should have a separate document pointing out how SCITT fits into various legislation. But pointing out a single legislation in a worldwide document wouldn't be a good thing. Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's obviously we don't want to make it jurisdiction specific. So if we have other examples, I think that would make it stronger.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that this just have the one reference. I think the more we can put in there as references where this is actually an applicable solution, I think the better traction we'll get. Thank you.
Yeah. I definitely understood it that way. We definitely have to sort of I guess none of us is sort of aware of the sort of global situation, and so we need probably input from different people. Good. Yeah, thanks, John, for running the meeting today. Thank you all for participating, and thanks, Karen, for helping take the notes or doing most of the notes. That's obviously very helpful. We are now running overtime already, so I think we should stop here, and I wish you all a happy draft submission day. And talk to you.
Good luck with all submissions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the hard work. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.